Clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Patrick?
Here.
Mr. Manchester?
Here.
Mr. Sweet?
Here.
Mr. Brennan?
Here.
Mr. Graubart? Mr. Highland?
Here.
Dr. Milliken? Mrs. Woodard? Mr. Hitchcock?
Here.
Mr. Bennett?
Here.
Mrs. Jackson?
Here.
Mr. Milazzo?
Here.
Mr. Madel?
Here.
Mr. Strange?
Here.
Mrs. Drexler?
Here. Have a motion to excuse Mr. Grobart and Mrs. Woodard. A motion by Mr. Milazzo, seconded by Mr. Manchester.
Mr. Milliken, too.
Oh, Mr. Milliken's on there.
He said he was,
Yeah, sorry, thank you.
maybe.
Mr.
I
Milliken, too.
apologize.
Thank you. Didn't write that one down?
Did you just second?
Yes, I got it, Mr. Manchester. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Motion to accept the minutes by Mr. Strange, seconded by Mr. Sweet. Any corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Motion to accept the communications 9-01 to 9-05 by Mr. Patrick, seconded by Mr. Sweet. Is there any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We come to the point where we have public comments. We have given you 5 minutes. Please come to the podium and state your name and your address. If you're representing somebody other than yourself, would you please state that? We'll start on this side, my left, your right. Anybody in the front row?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Doug Cushon, PhD, of Elmira in Chemung County. And over the past month, I've heard 3 more comments worth pursuing, this time by persons affiliated with Chemung County administration. And the commenters say that those who present to the legislator on the issue of the dump are concerned only about the drill cuttings, not expansion of the dump, are all anti-frackers. And the third comment is an old tape that plays over and over. The DEC will lead on the issue of dump expansion. These comments are intended to paint a good number of your constituents as being off topic or irrelevant, or to defer the discussion. I encourage you not to follow anyone down this path, for it's a difficult one. Constituents are likely not to tolerate such thoughts expressed by their legislators. Indeed, some of us who are against the dump expansion also work against fracking. However, others of us against the expansion are against the expansion due to the very real potential for our families being exposed to radioactive drinking water and dust. And others don't want garbage from downstate and elsewhere shipped here while our trash goes somewhere else. Others don't like Cassella making millions in Chemung County while it pollutes air and water and decreases the number of years to the usable life of the dump. And yet others fight expansion because of the increase in truck traffic and the added intensity of odor and noise that will inevitably result from greater dumping capacity. So although some of the folks who have made public comments about the dump are anti-fracking, the majority of folks are motivated to oppose expansion of the dump chiefly by one or more of the reasons mentioned. That being said, to deny that accepting drill cuttings or expanding the tonnage capacity at Chemung County dump is unrelated to fracking and flies in the face of reality. Other counties are getting it right. In fact, 13 New York State counties have banned the dumping of waste from fracking operations in their landfills. Connecticut is the latest state to legislate against frack wastes. News of that action and the action of the 13th New York county to ban frack waste emerged since your last general meeting here. Fracking equals production of toxic waste fluids equals It has to be dumped somewhere. Will we accept it here in our future? Fracking equals production of radioactive drill cuttings equals it has to be dumped somewhere. Why should we accept it here? The income it provides the county simply isn't worth the public health and pollution issues down the road. We do not want the dump expanded, and we don't want fracking waste, including drill cuttings, dumped in Chemung County for whatever our reasons for opposing these things. Now about the DEC. If you take the time to research the growth of regulation in the United States, you'll find that the regulatory process began in the late 18th century to issue permits to industrial corporate directors in order to deflect citizen opposition, in order to diffuse public outrage over being harmed by industrialization. The same holds true today. The DEC as a regulatory agency is no exception. The DEC is mandated to serve corporate interest. Any talk of serving the public interest is a smokescreen. The regulator's task is to mitigate corporations' worst harms, to lessen corporation impacts, and to keep corporate violence and destruction at what regulatory officials, hopefully not you and I, define as acceptable levels. Some call it collateral damage. So it's okay with some corporations and their regulatory shields if your child or grandchild is the one who gets poisoned by the industrial process. The rest of us are expected to be grateful that the number of ill and deceased isn't greater. I believe the DEC and other regulatory agencies are illegitimate for any discussion, deliberation, or decision on the issues currently being discussed in this chamber. Ultimately, you have the power to protect this county. If you wait around to see what the DEC has to say, we're all screwed. I urge you to take the matter of dump expansion and drill cuttings up by the bootstraps and come to your own decision, just the 15 of you, after listening to your constituents. Thank you for your time.
Next, in the front row.
My name is Joe Morris, I live on Robert Tyler Road in Loudon, right across the road from Chemung County Landfill. Our form of government is based on the Iroquois Confederacy. A lot of people don't know that. That's what John Adams and Ben Franklin and James Mason looked at things and said, hey, this was pretty good. We're going to make our form of government just like theirs. You know what that is? That's one man, one vote. Majority rules. I've been coming here over and over and over, and I've heard one person get up here and say they want the landfill expanded. And that's Tom Santulli, because he's got a $6 million defect to cover up. Everybody, how many people come up here and say, right, I want to see this landfill made into 417 tons? Nobody. Just come up here and said that when Mr. Santulli. Well, I got an idea. Mr. Santulli could go out and grow marijuana to close this damn defect. California's going to make $450 million. Oregon's going to make $350 million. Colorado $350 million by selling marijuana. Well, why the hell don't Chemung County start growing marijuana and sell that? We close the damn defect and leave that damn landfill alone. Thank you.
I think we start flying on here. Hi, I'm Betty Eck. I live in Homesteads. To kind of follow up on the previous speaker, I read a sentence that absolutely made me madder than any madness I've been in a long time. I don't know if any of you read the Gas Advisory Committee minutes. This group has been meeting, I believe, since 2010. I faithfully read the minutes because the public is not allowed to their meetings. But this sentence was from a meeting on April 24th, which covered many topics. But on the first page, there's 3 sentences out of 3 pages. And it says, blank, I'm not going to say the name, reported on the recent opposition to the landfill expansion. It was clear that those in opposition were individuals who are opposed to fracking, and their comments were related more to the acceptance of drill cutting, which they believe are radioactive, rather than to the actual expansion of the landfill. Many out-of-area anti-groups are now attending the meetings. This is the most dismissive few sentences I've ever seen in my life. This group has covered every single aspect related to fracking you can imagine, some I never even thought of. And this basically is 3 sentences saying that these people who have spoken for hours and you people who have patiently listened, and I thank you for that, that this is meaningless because we're out-of-towners. Some people do live out of town, but that's irrelevant. That's why the New York State Public Meeting Law says I don't have to identify myself, nor do you, because it's irrelevant whether we live in Chemung County or not. It's also totally incorrect to say that we're only caring about the drill cuttings and not about the landfill. I was at the landfill a couple weeks ago. These people are hurting. I saw the dust blowing. I saw the trucks hauling waste from New York City and God knows where else. They don't need an expansion. Okay? They don't need more of it, plus it's ultimately an extraordinarily backward thing for a county to do when other places are trying to eliminate those. As far as being just anti-fracking, yeah, I am. And I freely admit it. But this is only one battle in a war, and this is the one I'm facing right now. Fracking is not just the part where a drill goes down. Fracking is all the infrastructure. It's the pipelines, it's the compressor stations, it's everything else. It's your trains going through your city. Like the one that had a car fall off the track in November, and the hazmat team said it was just white powder on the ground. No, it was silica sand, and they didn't report it. Okay? They're now going through the Village of Horse Hills trains through residential areas. Yeah, there's a lot of things. I've shown up to protest at Schlumberger because I have seen firsthand piles of silica sand lying on the ground, able to blow over to the playing fields and to the elementary school. I have protested a compressor station. Why? Because they blow up, and when they don't blow up, they leak. And that's what they want in Horseheads. I protested that. I suggest you go home and Google what happened last night in Mini-Sink, New York. The compressor station leaked. There's emergency vehicles from all over the place. The people that have fought that station for 2 years because it's put right in a residential area when it could have been out in the middle of nowhere. I fought pipelines because I think eminent domain for taking people's land is about as anti-American as can be. And when people say you're only interested, all you care about fracking, this is my issue, so therefore I have no relevance. No, it's like the forest fires out in California. They're all over the place. They're in different spots. But if there's one right here, you fight that at a time, at one at a time. And to say that if you're out of town, it doesn't matter because people from all over the state come to help you fight that fire. So please don't, and I'm going to trust that you won't, based on what you've done so far in listening. Please don't go after this damn paragraph that manages to dismiss dozens and dozens of good people who know what's at stake here. Don't do that. Just because someone did it in minutes. And the other thing, I have like 3 years worth of minutes here. And there is not one mention in the minutes about drill cutting except the original plan for the purpose of the group. One of the things that they're supposed to address is drill cuttings. Well, surprise, there's nothing in here about that. The biggest issue you've been hearing about for 6 months now, committee's not looking at it. So I hope you don't feel, as this person feels, that you've got a bunch of idiots in here that are just causing, because we're not. Thank you.
Thank you. Next in the front row.
Good evening, Ruth Young from Horseheads. First of all, I'd just like to ask you folks a question. A couple of months ago, 3 months ago now, I handed out to each one of you a DVD from legislators in Westchester County, Putnam County. And how many of you actually looked at that DVD? Anybody? Yeah, you don't have to say a word, just raise your hand if you did look at it.
They don't talk, they're here to listen.
I know, that's why I said they don't have to say a word. Well, I'm going to take that mostly as a no. that fellow legislators don't even interest you enough to listen to the reasons that they have banned taking frack waste into their counties. And they did it unanimously in spite of their county exec, who incidentally voted along with them to ban it at the time. I wasn't really going to speak to you tonight at all because I'm just sort of discouraged. But I had to go into her doctor's appointment this afternoon, and I had time to talk to a nurse practitioner there. She's in her early 60s, and she lives up on a hill near Cohocton, on a farm that her parents started years ago. Her mother died, and shortly thereafter her father died, and she has had to have a kidney transplant. And I said, when did all of this start happening? And she said, well, she said it was right after Mom and Dad agreed to have the gas drilled on our land. Now I said, that we don't have horizontal fracking in New York State yet that anybody really knows of, but of course DEC doesn't have enough personnel in the field anymore to know. It happened with just an ordinary vertical gas well that hit their aquifer and completely polluted the entire property. They can't drill a water well there now because it all comes up with saline. Now saline, you say, oh, that's just salt water. Well, there's many kinds of salts. There's barium salts and strontium salts and radium salts and all kinds of crap that's buried down there with the good intelligence of Mother Nature and ought to stay buried. I just thought you ought to know that what you're risking is not way down in the future, past your time. It's here and now. Look your children and your grandchildren in the eyes and tell them exactly what decisions you're making here that are going to affect them directly. This lady cannot live on her land without having a water buffalo delivered to her, and she can't sell it. Frankly, she's screwed. And she lost her parents, and she's lost one kidney already. I just thought you'd like to know. Thank you.
Second row.
Hello, I'm Karen Bizantz, and I'm a resident of Corning, but I own property in Chemung County. And I have a daughter who lives here. So thank you for listening this evening. Chemung County has the disreputable distinction of having two high-priority EPA Superfund sites. The EPA has been trying to clear up these sites since the 1980s. Excuse me. One is the Facet Enterprises site in the Heights that was added to this deadly list in 1983 due to contamination found in soil and groundwater. About 1,000 people live within a quarter of a mile of that site, and there are 6 schools within a mile. The other site is the Kentucky Avenue well field near Horseheads, which was closed in 1980 with the discovery of trichloroethylene in the water. There are about 11,000 people living within a mile of that site. Some of the chemicals found in these 2 sites, like PCBs, are lethal even in minuscule amounts. Otherwise, they might only make you mighty sick. The EPA has done some urgently needed remediation. Tons of poison-ridden soil has been removed. Toxic vapors, when found entering homes in Horseheads, for example, have been vented. Water was polluted and people had to use bottled water until they were connected to a safe supply of water. Monitoring by the EPA is ongoing and remediation continues. These man-made environmental disasters are happening right now in Chemung County, just a few miles from this room. The cleanup is far from complete. No doubt people have suffered and are suffering as results of the ongoing chemical tragedy. The thought of adding to the witch's brew already in Chemung County by bringing in radioactive fracking waste borders on insanity. You cannot hide radioactivity or hide from it. Once here, it could take millennia to decay. We will not be able to send it away because there is no place for it to go. So please do not sell the soul of Chemung County, its people, for a few pieces of silver. Just take a clue from Chemung County's own history and protect our land, water, and air. Thank you kindly for your consideration.